The horrendous attack from Marseille supporters on Lyon's team bus is inexcusable. This should never happen. The safety of anyone who takes part in or takes in a football match should never be threatened, period. And in Lyon's case, it felt like a final, incredibly scary and harsh metaphor for how the club has been beaten down repeatedly this season, and the muck and the mire they are being dragged through. At one time, Lyon was the most dominant club in all of France, going on a run of consecutive Ligue title victories that PSG would be proud of. I mean, that PSG has yet been unable to match, actually. Under former owner Jean-Michel Aulas, who took over Lyon in 1987 when they were in Ligue 2, around the turn of the century, Lyon began to really hit the jackpot as far as talent development goes and winning titles. Florent Malouda, Michael Essien, Juninho, Eric Abidal, Mamadou Diarra, and of course Karim Benzema helped turn Lyon into a dominant force in France and spilling into Europe as well, as they were Champions League knockout round mainstays. Lyon won their first league title, yes, the first in their history, in 2002, which kicked off a run of 7 consecutive seasons where Les Gons lifted the Ligue 1 title. And like I said, 7 consecutive titles is something that even PSG, with all of their dominance, has never been able to achieve. But now 9 out of the previous 11 titles for PSG is pretty dominant as well. But following their hot streak that catapulted Lyon from Ligue 1 aspirants, from Ligue 1, well, maybe we'll win someday, to Ligue 1 royalty, they've had a hard time finding enough consistency to reach their previous level, only thrice finishing as runners-up since 2008. They've had moments. They made the Champions League semifinals not long ago. They've continued to develop some fantastic talents, but dreams of any success that even comes close to flirting with those achievements are 6 feet under at the moment, as Lyon are the closest they have been to Ligue 2 for some time now, with their worst start to a Ligue 1 season in 57 years. So how did they get to this point? How did Lyon go from Ligue 1 dominance to still being a top side in the country to now undoubtedly the worst team in France's top flight based on results? Let's look at how things have progressed to this point in the last 6 months, then try to upstream this problem. And as always, sources are in the description if you want to do your own reading. The 22-23 season actually ended on a great note for Lyon. Peter Bosz was sacked in October of 2022, despite starting with 4 wins and a draw from their opening matches. A run of 4 matches without a win in Ligue 1 saw him get his marching orders, with Laurent Blanc taking over. Things didn't really improve that much under Blanc. He managed to get 2 wins from 5 matches prior to the World Cup break, but there was a marked improvement from the end of January to the end of the season. The end of season was truly something to smile about, or be hopeful of, at Lyon, finishing the season with 7 wins and 3 losses, including that match from May 7th against Montpellier that you'll likely remember. Lyon went 4-1 down at home against Montpellier, only to turn things around and win 5-4, one of the great comebacks in Ligue 1 history, no doubt. But mixed in there, they also had a loss against Clermont Foot. They haunt this side. Not only did Blanc take over for Bosz in 2022, but Lyon's longtime owner and president, Jean-Michel Aulas, sold his stake in the club to American businessman and investor John Textor in 2021. Yes, the same dude who also owns Brazilian side of Botafogo, Belgian club RWD Molenbeek, and Crystal Palace out of the Premier League. Textor, like another certain American businessman, has a keen interest in a multi-club model as he looks to build up his football empire. That will take time, and like another certain American business, it's Bowley. It's Todd Bowley I'm talking about. But like him, his multi-club model has had a bit of a false start, as Lyon have struggled. It would be easy to say, and obviously overly simplistic, that Lyon is struggling without the aura of Aulas at the club. But perhaps there's something to that. We'll get to the new ownership and their struggles later, but first, let's look at Lyon's preseason. They started out in mid-July against Treffers, an amateur side from the Netherlands, and they beat them 2-1. From there, they faced Manchester United and lost 1-0. Next up, they lost 1-0 to one of Textor's teams, RWB Molenbeek, then again to Celta Vigo, and finally, they played yet another one of Textor's sides in Crystal Palace and lost 2-0. They won 8-2 against Swiss side Sion, but other than that in the match against Treffers, they were blanked in every other match. Or shall I say blanked? Sorry. Bad one. People always say don't read into preseason. In light of the social media age and the reactionary takes we see on there, I would amend that to don't read into preseason unless it fits your agenda. Because that's essentially what you see amongst modern football fans. But when it comes to Lyon's poor preseason, that trajectory continued into their actual season, losing 2-1 away to Strasbourg, then losing 4-1 to Montpellier at home. No 5-4 comeback this time, as that felt like a distant memory compared to the poor display Lyon put on. A 0-0 draw away to Nice felt like maybe Lyon could grow into their season, only for them to be scythed down by PSG in a truly disheartening style. At halftime, Luis Enrique's fellas already had a 4-0 lead. The match ended 4-1, and no doubt you will have seen Lyon's players getting a talking to from their ultras, saying to the players things such as, quote, "You're the ones who wear the Lyon jersey. Others before you have worn it, glorified it. You don't have the right to tarnish it. All we ask is to be by your side. But to do that, you're going to have to earn it." When this is coming from supporters who have ties to the mafia, and from the same supporters who have also happily taken part in some of the fan violence and deplorable acts from French hooligans over the last couple of years, you fear that if the poor results continue, then there's a chance that copycat acts such as what the Marseille supporters did to their own side's training center could unfold. In fact, more on Marseille supporters soon, but Lyon Ultras have also had matches shut down for bottling Dimitri Payet after just 4 minutes. Lyon were docked a point for that in 2021. And they also caused Lyon to be kicked from the Coupe de France in 2021 after storming the pitch for their match against Paris FC. Not PSG, Paris FC. Following the loss to PSG in September of 2023 and the dressing down from the Ultras, Lyon parted ways with Laurent Blanc, but they just couldn't part ways with their poor form, even under new manager Fabio Grosso. Yes, that Fabio Grosso of World Cup 2006 fame, who last season led Frosinone to the Serie B title in dominant fashion, winning the league, scoring the most goals, and conceding the fewest. That's dominance at all levels. Well, all of those goals from Serie B didn't carry over, unfortunately for Grosso, as his Lyon side continued to struggle, failing to score in his first 3 matches, getting a 3-3 draw with Lorient, then getting back to the losing column with a 2-1 loss to Clermont Foot, the club who, at that time, was the only club lower than Lyon in the table. They had quite literally hit rock bottom in Ligue 1. Again, their worst start in Ligue 1 since 1966, a 57-year low. Other similarly poor starts from them have seen them get relegated in the past. And then, this past weekend, another dark mark on French football at a time where French football fan culture is creating a terrible reputation for itself with the violence it has seen over the past few years. This time, Lyon's bus was attacked by supporters outside of Marseille Stadium, with manager Fabio Grosso getting quite the bloody injury. I mean, look away if blood makes you squeamish. Fair warning, changing the image in 3, 2, 1. That's the cover of L'Équipe from October 30th. French football at a new low as far as the violent fan culture at the moment. Lyon at a new low on the pitch. But how? There was a lengthy takeover of Lyon by American businessman John Textor, who apparently was a competitive skateboarder in the 70s. I had no idea about that one. But when it comes to where you may know him from, if you watch football in North America, then you've likely come across Fubo TV at one point. He was the former executive chairman of the streaming service, whom he helped grow to a $6 billion company on the New York Stock Exchange. Also in football, you may know him from trying to buy plenty of football teams in the past few years. Hell, he was strongly pursuing my club, Benfica. There are even images of him with a Benfica shirt with his name on the back. But that deal never went through. Instead, he managed to purchase Botafogo, Crystal Palace, RWD Molenbeek in Belgium, OL Reign in Washington State, USA, and finally Olympique Lyon, which was all finalized in December of 2022 as Textor's Eagle Football Group acquired the football club for around 800 million euros. I know what you're thinking. How can one guy buy so many football teams and have them all do well in that small time frame? I'm thinking the same thing. Textor took over from former, longtime owner and president, the aforementioned Jean-Michel Aulas, who had overseen Lyon's growth from Ligue 2 to their unstoppable 7 consecutive Ligue 1 titles. While his influence had waned, and PSG had made it difficult for anyone else to measure their success, Aulas' term at the club will mostly be looked at as a massive success, elevating the club to new levels, some continental trips to the deep rounds of the Champions League, producing some of France's top talents over the last few decades, etc. According to Textor himself and other sources, Olas perhaps had a bit of, quote, seller's remorse, as Textor said, as once the deal was agreed and Eagle Football took ownership of 80% of Lyon, he found that they still didn't have as much influence as perhaps they would have liked. That's why you heard about Textor's potential takeover as early as June 2022. Meanwhile, it wasn't finalized with Textor and his group in control with Textor as the president of the club until December of 2022. There were moments where it was puzzling as to whether Textor would get this over the line, or at the very least have the control that he sought so badly. The DNCG, that being the Direction Nationale du Contrôle de Gestion, essentially the financial watchdog or regulator of French football, began asking Textor and his Eagle Football Group to provide more funds in order to balance the books. Little bits of debt here and there that he had to pay off, he had some difficulties in finding partners for the takeover, etc. More on that in a moment. Textor had some fantastic words to say about his ambitions for the club. Really fantastic stuff. Mostly. And even then, words are wind, as they say in Westeros. But Textor hit all of the endearing notes when speaking to supporters, saying how Lyon are a team that is built for the Champions League, how they're gunning for PSG and their dominance, how Lyon will be central to Textor's multi-club model, etc. And there are two ways fans could look at that last part. It could be seen as exciting, as you could potentially benefit from the work that your owners are doing at other clubs when it comes to player recruitment, etc. Or the other side of that could be, well, the ownership group's attention is fractured, and that could spell trouble for my own club that is apparently central to the project. But speaking about what you will is different from what you are actually able to pull off. And well, words are wind, right? From a decent start to ownership under Textor to disaster, Lyon were a top 3 side in the second half of the 2022-23 season, which thanks to their form in the latter stages of the league, saw them rise to 7th, not to their standard, but considering the poor start, it felt like some decent foundations to build off of. In June of 2023, the DNCG announced that if Textor and Eagle Football didn't inject a further 60 million euros into the club, then they would consider their books to be unstable going into the 23-24 season, and there could be repercussions because of that. Textor and the fellas tried to negotiate that number down, they sold the Lyon women's team, etc., but didn't quite meet the DNCG's demands. And then July came around, bringing with it the whole DNCG debacle. Remember them, the financial watchdogs of French football? Well, perhaps it was released deliberately on this day as a bit of humor from the DNCG for this new American owner. But if it wasn't, then it was just a funny coincidence. But on July 4th, 2023, it was announced by the DNCG that they would be taking a very close look at everything that Lyon was doing when it came to their finances. Now, you might be tempted into thinking, okay, what's the big deal? So what if they watch them with a microscope? However, the catch here is that the DNCG can actually block incoming transfers to Lyon if they don't think that Lyon has the financial might to pull them off. The reason why they're being scrutinized? Textor and his camp completely disagree with it, of course, as they see this as some bureaucratic red tape they have to get through, but the reason is down to the DNCG saying that Textor and his group didn't provide the necessary guarantees financially that would point to Lyon being in good financial standing. Textor had to get a lot of help for this takeover, which, as you'll remember, is why the takeover took so long. Textor had to gather a lot of partners to make it work financially, something that the DNCG was skeptical of. When Textor and Lyon pushed back and appealed the decision, it was actually held up by the French FA. Textor, who is quite transparent with his dealings in that he has a blog that he posts to regularly. Sorry, that sentence just sounded ridiculous when it comes out. The guy blogs, he's a blogger. But anyway, he wrote a blog post entitled "Welcome to France," in which he voiced his displeasure, saying, quote, "We were invited to purchase one of the true treasures of football in France. We were invited to pay out cash of nearly 400 million euros to its longtime shareholders, pay 65 million euros in cash to its interested public shareholders, pay down bank debt by 50 million euros, then fund another 60 million euros in cash on short notice just for cushion. But we are not yet invited to execute a business plan based on our beliefs, with a free hand for the benefit of the community we serve." There are many Lyon supporters that look at this situation similarly to Textor. They feel that Textor and the ownership group did what was asked of them, yet they still wouldn't have freedom in the transfer market as they were being scrutinized heavily and would have to make some sales. Some Lyon fans even pointed to what they believe to be unfair treatment, as teams like PSG have leaked millions year upon year without penalty. Right decision, wrong decision, fair, unfair, the net outcome is the same. The French FA upheld the DCNG's decision, and Lyon's transfer window was affected greatly. There are some out there who point to their window and say, that's so bizarre, what are they doing? Why would they do this, silly American owner? Well, we can't relate, can we? We understand. We understand why they made sales that raised up to 107 million euros, including incredibly important or promising players such as Bradley Barcola to PSG, or Caseo Lukeba to RB Leipzig, Romain Fèvre to Bournemouth. And then there's the free transfers, Houssem Aouar to Roma, Moussa Dembele to Al Ettifaq, and on it goes. We understand now why they spent just 19 million euros after saying how Lyon was their crown jewel in their multi-club project. We understand now why they were forced into loaning in youngsters mostly for their window, or why a player that left Crystal Palace for 1 million euros ends up being a starter for Lyon. Why? Because they were desperate to get anyone they could, for one, and because, well, they share an owner with Crystal Palace, so that was an easy move to make. Their dealings were strange, and the Textor/Lyon regime spin would be that their hands were tied, which they aren't wrong to a certain degree. But Moussa Dembele, who left as his contract ran out, had some words to say about Lyon since leaving. Here are the highlights. Quote, "I left like Malo, Castillo, and Bradley did. And they did well to leave in order to improve, enjoy better momentum for their development, and earn more money." Lyon's director of football, Vincent Ponceau, said in an interview that he received bids for me and that I have turned them down. He's lying. If he had received bids for me, he didn't talk to my agent about it, and that's professional misconduct from him, not me. The executives are all incompetent and arrogant. He also spoke of how while he was with Lyon, he went through 5 managers in 5 seasons, chosen by 3 different sporting directors, and wondered when the club executives would start looking at themselves as the problem before their next sacking. Why do I bring this up, you ask? It may be the harsh words of a spurned lover, a former player who feels slighted and has built up reserves of vitriol for their old club. But looking at how things have transpired, it's interesting having that insider look. It's easy to believe in the chaos that was mentioned by Dembele, as news stories co-sign what he said, and, well, the outcome is what you see on the pitch now. Leadership starts from the top. Sure, you can get lucky now and then with a great coach or a great squad composition that leads to some trophies despite some terrible management, but clubs who maintain success typically have great leaders at the top of the club, and through their decisions and appointments, etc., the club can find some sustained success through the trickle-down method. Lyon and other clubs have struggled lately. Their on-pitch calamity matches that of what's going on behind the scenes. Look at Chelsea or Everton as examples. Look at Sporting and the chaos caused behind the scenes before things settled and they went back to being a competitive side in Portugal again. So when it comes to Lyon and their struggles on the pitch at the moment, the TLDR of this video is this. They recently had an ownership change, which any club can tell you can come with its hiccups and struggles, not just from when ownership changes hands, but typically as the process plays out. Results can start to go awry given all of the questions surrounding the club. Said ownership was also hit with something of a transfer ban, or at least a ban from freedom within the transfer market, with every move being scrutinized, approved, or blocked by the DCNG, the Financial Control Board. The outcome of this was being forced into the sales of some of their best players, their top young talent, and losing more senior heads such as Aouar and Dembele, which unquestionably has led to Lyon's squad being much weaker than last season. Mix all of these things together in a pot, and the outcome, at least so far, isn't surprising. Lyon are the worst team in Ligue at the moment, and while there have been flashes of improvement, there's a long road ahead of them to get back to where they once were. First order of business, avoid relegation, and then build from there. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you enjoyed this video, then a like is always appreciated. And hey, if you want more from me here at Rabona TV, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more explainers and essays. I'm Adrian, thanks again for watching, and take care. Ciao.